Hi, my name is Henk Conn, and I am running for United States Senate. The year is 2022, and I'm in California. Today, I am, what I'm doing is I'm doing chats across with other candidates. And today I have Justin Paglino, right? But not Pagliano, Paglino
Correct.
is, and is running for Congress. Um, and today, just really quick, I wanted to ask a couple questions. First question is right to the point. The Green Party has the Green New Deal it published, and the Democrats have their own Green New Deal. The major distinction between the two is that the Green Party's deadlines were around 2030 to start dramatic change and production of oil, where the Democrats wanted one as far as back as 2045, 2050. So they delay the deadlines for dramatic change and putting an end to the use of petroleum. Um, what do you think are you the kind of person that sees this as an incremental change, and whether or not it's 2030 and 2050 is going to be okay? Or are you more akin to a person that says 2030 is too late, but it is okay, but so this kind of deadline is not okay?
I would say that, you know, let's see, about 30 years ago, I probably would have been an incremental change person. I might have said, well, this is, because I remember 30 years ago learning about global warming, and it was, it was James Hansen testifying to Congress, and it was it was just kind of starting to get a little bit of traction, but it clearly made sense to me at the time. And I came to understand that we have got to transition off of fossil fuels, not just because they're a finite resource, which they are, but because of the pollution and the carbon pollution and the irreversible effects that's going to have. So we've been, delaying action on this for a long time. At least 30 years ago, I think we should have started taking this seriously. And we haven't taken it seriously at all. I mean, if you look at our carbon emissions, they, worldwide, they continue to go up. We're not really, we've got to be on a rapid downward trajectory to meet these goals that the climate, the IPCC has put out. So, we're nowhere near in a policy sense, taking this seriously enough. And we haven't been for a long time. And that is exactly the problem, is that the more we delay, the more urgent and drastic, rapid changes we have to make. And this would have been a lot more easy to do if we had started 30 years ago and done a gentle transition to a carbon-free economy. But now it's really, time is short and the water's rising. And yeah, I mean, they talk about what is our carbon budget, at current rates of carbon emissions. I believe I heard 12 years that we have to, it's getting, if we want to keep warming less than 1.5 degrees, which is the goal.
Well, it's funny because the distance between now and these final goals vary in scariness. And I think that affects people's willingness to change.
I mean, the time and again, the science has shown that, we're not over dramatizing this. I mean, maybe some people might, but the climate scientists have been consistently justified in, the projections that they've made have come out to be true. I remember, denial is it's hackery. Like, they'll just take anything they can point to try and muddy the issue or confuse you or point to some data point that really is just not relevant to the big picture, and try to, they're just arguing. They'll make anything the basis of their argument. I remember when the global temperatures plateaued for maybe 5 years, they said, see, it stopped. Nothing to worry about. This was maybe back in 2005, I think. And then, of course, just as predicted, they started going up again.
I remember that distinctly. There was a adjustment in the ocean temperatures, and that what they found was is that the ocean was absorbing a lot of heat, not only absorbing it but containing it, and that is causing things like the bleaching of sponges and other marine life, the reefs, and that there was a harm that they weren't measuring until the last minute. They go, oh, this is why the atmosphere itself is not rising, because we're in a dip of absorption, and then once that peaked, it's starting to go up again.
Yeah.
Is this what we're? Is am I getting my facts right?
Right. Yeah. The ocean, of course, has a tremendous capacity to absorb heat and also carbon dioxide. But both of those things are limited. It's like, a sponge can absorb water up to a point. Just like that, the ocean can absorb carbon dioxide up to a point. But when it absorbs carbon dioxide, it also lowers the pH a little bit, and which is part of what's causing a problem for the coral. Yes. And same thing with heat. It can only increase so much. But there's a lot of parallels between kind of what we saw going on with the coronavirus pandemic and global warming to me, which is just there are people who dedicate their lives to try to understand these things. There are dedicated scientists who, they spend years just trying to get themselves familiar with all the literature in their particular field so that they can understand it well enough to try and make advances and understand it better. These things take years of dedicated work to try and advance any field of science, and they know what they're doing. And there's a process of peer review that knocks out theories and ideas that can't be substantiated.
Well, now you're just going to bore our viewers, because I agree, because there's a difference between what's called a meta-analysis versus an individual study, and I think that there's a big part of that, because like I said before, understanding this, predicting what year or decade exactly we're going to see any change that we want to predict is hard. It's built on that kind of prediction is a meta-analysis built where someone might review hundreds, if not thousands, of studies on multi-variables and try to pinpoint it somehow. All of those studies are scientific, but doing that sort of grand conclusion is fallible. But that does not mean that all those studies are wrong.
Yeah, well, this is touching on something that I kind of thought about a lot during the pandemic, and it's relevant to all kinds of fields of science, which is who is the communicator of science that could be trusted or would be trusted? Who is the person who is going, because an individual scientist really has a focus within their field, and usually their expertise is not going to be in communicating these things to the general audience. I mean, it can be done, but it's not typically part of your work or your job. And so we have a Surgeon General who tries, who's supposed to communicate health advice to the general public. But I think you're right. It's that last step. Science is a very solid process and it works itself out over time. But then there's that last step of, okay, who's going to make sense of all this for the lay person who's not in the game? Who's going to take all of this and synthesize it and boil it down to a one-page summary that we can trust. And that's a difficult thing to do because, first of all, boiling anything down to one page, you're leaving out a lot of details and nuance. You know, David Attenborough, one of his recent specials, talks about the amazing disappearance of natural habitats that has come about in a very short time in the planet's history. How, as the human population went from a billion, a few hundred years ago to now almost, it's 8 billion, almost 8 billion, but we're shooting towards like 10 billion by the end of the century. We've really taken up a lot of space, and not just us, but our agriculture takes up a lot of, it's really our agriculture that is using up a lot of land. And we've crowded out just wild areas. And it puts us in a delicate situation. We do depend on nature. And like you said, nature does have its own inherent value. And
one would say just as much as us.
Yeah, we're part of nature. And we have to be wise. We have to find a way to live in balance with nature that has respect for nature. And no one's suggesting that we stop having respect for human needs, but we have to live in balance. It's like learning to live within a budget or something. We have, to some extent, we have limited resources on this planet, and we have limited space, and there's going to be limited energy, and we have to learn to live smartly within those limits. And having respect for nature, I think, is part of that, and understanding that once you destroy things, it's hard to get them back. Things that took nature millions of years to create, you just wipe them out.